So I was active in the anti-war movement from the time I was 17, and I moved to Boston because that seemed like a good place to be. People like me, I could be a clerk typist or I could be a waitress. And I'd been a waitress, and I didn't like being a waitress, so I was a clerk typist. There were so few jobs available to women. And in fact, 1 out of 3 women who worked as a clerk typist or a clerical worker of one kind or another. We were, I think, more bothered by the issues of respect than we were about the money, than the pay, which we didn't even understand was so unfair. We didn't understand that we should be furious about that too. Professional women were part of the women's movement, but regular working women, like clerical workers, there wasn't a place for us. The idea of women's equality was bubbling up everywhere. So I started talking to friends of mine who were also working as clerical workers. And it was out of that group that met for almost a year that we decided to create the organization 9 to 5. And we call our first meeting, and 150 women come to the YWCA in downtown Boston. It was the right thing at the right time, and it took off like that. We decide that our next meeting is we're going to meet with the Chamber of Commerce. And the guy from the Chamber of Commerce comes to meet with us, amazingly. And we say, this is unfair, you should do something. And he says, well, I don't believe you. You need to show me that there are problems here. So we think, oh, okay, that's a good idea. We had failed to actually, come up with statistics. So we come up with a bunch of statistics, and it's much worse than we even knew. I think we built an organization that we wanted to be part of. And so fun was part of it. But it's also part of how do you go after people who have so much more power than you do? And using humor is one of the ways to do that. We had our annual Bad Boss contest. Women would write in what their bosses had done that had outraged them. They were so crazy. We had a woman whose boss required her to clean his dentures. A woman who said that her boss required her to sew up a seam in his pants while he still had them on. We were really good at getting a group of women in the city or in a workplace to make demands and have a meeting with the boss and get something changed. So then you'd have to go start all over again. And in some ways, we came on our own, certainly as an organization, to this notion that you shouldn't have to start all over again over every single issue. You should have standing as a legitimate voice in every workplace, and that's a union. We started our own union. I was the head of 9 to 5, the association, and I was the president of the union. So I was friends with Jane Fonda because of our work together in the anti-war movement. I'm still in touch with Jane, and when we meet, I'm telling her about we've already started 9 to 5 and how it's taking off, and it's so great, and it's kind of it's created a new wing of the women's movement that's got our own culture and that is making this massive headway among working class women. And so and I'm also telling her about the Bad Boss contest and, these outrages. And so it's her idea to make a movie about it. 9 to 5 is the most successful example of popular culture growing out of a popular movement and then reinforcing it, creating an impulse that makes it grow. So there's these sparks that are going on, and then I go on a 20-city tour called The Movement Behind the Movie. And I go to all these cities around the country, and we doubled the number of our chapters. So it was always about not just culture, but organizing, because you change culture and you don't root it in institutional change, and then you'll lose it. So independence, to be independent, to enjoy your life, depends ultimately on the strength of numbers.